Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April 4th episode of Portsmouth This Week. We have with us today Mr. Robert Smith from the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. I am Jim Seveny, your guest host. I'm standing in for Doug Smith. And we'll start off with a quick bio on Bob. He's been with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation since he graduated from URI, 31 years. He is the Deputy Chief of Engineering for Design. URI graduate, civil engineer. He's a professional engineer. Started out entry-level with Department of Transportation, right up through the ranks to become a Deputy Chief Engineer. Supervised the design and engineering of hundreds of road projects around the state. And it's great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Jim.
And if it's okay, we'll start off with several questions. The first being perhaps a description, a little history of the road diet. That's been an issue of concern recently because we're embarking on that project with Bristol Ferry Road.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Well, the department had plans to resurface Bristol Ferry Road as part of our pavement preservation program, and that resurfacing was going to happen this spring. And as part of that, one of the tools that we use to implement safety is a road diet. It's something we look at on a lot of projects where the capacity of the road, the lanes that are there, it has excess capacity. And in this case, Bristol Ferry Road has about 12,000 cars a day, and four-lane road, not necessarily what's needed for that road today. Maybe it was bypassed or had a different service back in the past, but now, in 2014, with 12,000 cars a day, we thought we could get some safety improvements by implementing a road diet. So the best time for us to do that usually is when we're going to resurface the road. It's kind of a nice new canvas to put the new striping down on, so that after some discussion with the town was included in the project. I think there was a little bit of apprehension with some of the community, so we did have the public hearing this past week to sort of answer and address those concerns, and I think the response to that from the department has been to implement a trial period where we'll grind off the existing striping and put down the new proposed road diet, which is 3 lanes, 2 lanes in each, 1 lane in each direction with a center turning lane, and then let that just kind of go for a while so people can get used to it, make sure that it works, everyone's satisfaction. Then when the road is repaved, we can go ahead and either continue with the road diet striping or go back to the way that it was. Right,
and I think your proposal to run this on a trial basis, I think that took a lot of the concern down a notch so people can actually experience it. And I mean, this isn't our first experience with road diets, which simply put are just taking X number of lanes down to some lower number of lanes, right? To provide wider median where you can turn, a larger buffer between the side of the road where cars travel and the sidewalks, that sort of thing. So how about a little history on some of the other road diets that have been in place for, in some cases, upwards of 10 years? Right,
and we've had 4 right here in Portsmouth, starting with Park Avenue back in about 04, 05. And that was kind of an easy one because that was the road going to the Stone Bridge back in the day. And I think people were actually parking in the right-hand lane. So we were able to use some of the width to make the sidewalks wider. The volumes were very low out there, and that one was completed, like you said, about 10 years ago, and I think it was a success. Since then, we've done a little more challenging roads, Turnpike Ave, West Main Road, and East Main Road, both the northern ends of those roads, going from 4 lanes to 3 in the case of East and West Main, and Turnpike went from 4 to 2. And again, all roads that had a reasonable volume of traffic that could be supported by 2 or 3 lanes that had been 4. And on those roads, we have seen the speeds go down and different types of accidents severely reduced because of the implementation of the road diet.
Right. And that, the transportation safety is the number one concern, of course. from the town's perspective, we haven't seen any issues arise. There have been no complaints related to congestion or ability to get on and off the road.
No.
I know on East Main Road there was a little bit of a concern from some of the business owners that the road diet might harm the traffic flow in and out of their
Sure.
businesses, and none of that's turned out to be the case. It seems like it's been a complete success.
Yeah, you can't blame people. It's a change, and if you own a business,
Right.
you know, the economy is so tight right now that any change, you know, you be nervous about
Yeah,
it.
you have to consider it,
And
sure.
but all around the state where we've done this, it doesn't make the traffic go away. We'll only do it on roads where we think the reduced lanes can handle the traffic. You know, the rest of East or West Main Road probably might not be good candidates because the traffic really increases south of Turnpike and near Clements Market there. But where we can do it, it can really give us a good safety benefit, and it's very low cost. It's just striping, and we can always put it back.
Okay, great. And you know, coming attractions will be we'll see how the trial goes.
Sure.
And we'll report back probably in late June or
Couple
early
months.
July.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So why don't we switch to East Main Road, right out in front of the building here where the studio is. The construction plans for that.
Yep. That job started out as what we call an ADA job, Americans with Disabilities Act. It was shown to be a relatively high priority to have improved sidewalks. When we do those jobs, if the pavement needs to be done, obviously we'll resurface it too. But the road had the road diet several years ago, so the road width and everything is pretty good now. So this project was to come back, excuse me, and rebuild the sidewalks and bring them into compliance with ADA. And you know, you've got the high school right off of East Main Road and a lot of businesses, so there is foot traffic out there. So the project initially was just to do that. It's grown a little bit. You know, if we're going to be on the road, we want to try to catch some things while we're there, and it's going to be resurfaced. There's also some traffic signal work at the 3 or 4 signals, and a little bit of intersection improvement here, right near the building, where Chase's Lane, Park Ave, and East Main all come together.
Okay. And when is that going to start?
We're looking at doing that later this year, although the project is pending funding. We're waiting for Congress to act on the Federal Highway Trust Fund, and should that money come, then we'd be in a position maybe later this year, toward the fall, to start that project.
Okay, good. Next thing on the list was the roadway change that's, I guess, going to be implemented in front of King's Grant, the turning lane.
Yeah, we did some work out there last year, and we got some comments from the public about the turning, left turn advance on the signal. That's something we've done at many intersections on West Main Road, but wasn't done there. Maybe when the planning of the job was being done, you know, they didn't feel the volumes were there, but it was reanalyzed when the public brought it up, and it's been approved by the State Traffic Commission to go ahead and put the advanced green arrow in there like on many of the other intersections. We're going to take that and add it to the next project that's going to be bid in the area where we do signals. So that could be, you know, several months before that comes up in another project, but it is approved, and the plans are getting included in a project that will be bid.
Right.
So the public should see that that signal improved within, hopefully by the end of this year, but it is on the docket, if not this year, to follow next year. The thing with signals is whenever you order new equipment, it gets ordered. So not only does the job have to be bid and awarded, once the contractor gets it, he has to order the new equipment, and that can take several months. So
Right.
hopefully that would get done this year, if not early next year.
Okay, so what's the experience in terms of a positive impact on traffic safety with that kind of change?
Well, you're trying to give the people that want to turn in advance to hold back those other cars. Left turns are typically the most dangerous across traffic, so it's for them to have their own phase is a real positive, and also it will help capacity so that people don't have to wait and queue up people behind them waiting to make that left turn. So capacity and safety benefits with doing that.
Okay, great. Next is the town center plan. Now this has been in process for a while. Some of the history goes back to a town committee that had been put together to talk about various options and all that. We did get some federal money for some design stuff, which went to you guys.
Yep.
So maybe you can give us a little bit of a broader history, what the current status is, and where you think that's going to go.
Sure, Jim. That's good to bring it up because it's been being designed now for several years without a whole lot of communication. As you said, there was a group back in the early 2000s locally that came up with some planning ideas for the town, and one was this town center, including the road improvements to East Main Road from the town hall down to Turnpike Ave. And basically, not only is there a lot of vehicles and a lot of activity out there, but also pedestrian activity, where we had some unfortunate accidents in the past. And this project was going to try to just totally change the character of East Main Road to try to make it more pedestrian friendly while still handling the amount of traffic that it does get, about 25,000 cars a day. So the plan that the committee came up with had a median. It had wider shoulders and a grass strip between the sidewalk and the road to really get the pedestrians away from the road. And it was flanked on each end by roundabouts. Roundabouts are similar to the old traffic circles that we used to have, but they do a better job of channelizing traffic so that speeds are low. And we thought that was an important component here because we wanted to lower speeds through this area so that people would be able to deal with pedestrians make it more friendly for pedestrians, really. So the roundabout in front of Town Hall, another one at Turnpike and East Main, and then another one in the middle was proposed at some area that was going to develop as part of the town center plan. Having them in sequence, connected by median, takes all the left turns out of the corridor, which is really important because those are the most dangerous, where, in America, where we drive on the right side of the road, left turns are across traffic on a 4-lane road. All the turns would be reverse direction at the roundabout, and then it makes all the turns right turn only. So that was a real safety benefit. We've been working on those plans. We worked with the committee at first to scale it down a little bit because it's a pretty disruptive proposal. It's widening by a good 4 or 5 feet on each side of the road, plus the sidewalks. At the southern end of the job, there's a pretty wide corridor there to fit it in, but as you get down the hill towards Clements Market, it gets pretty tight, and this proposal is a pretty significant widening. So we at DOT for the last few years now have been going through developing the detailed design plans so that we can acquire property and get environmental permits. We haven't started that yet, but we have the detailed plans almost in place so that can happen and so people can see the impact of the project. I think we're approaching a good point now to come back to the council. I think there's been some turnover. Some of them aren't as familiar as others with the plans, so it's a good time for us to bring that detail back and really hammer it out so that everyone's comfortable, we're all on the same page to go forward with this or a tweaked version of this project.
Right. Now, when you say acquire property, what you're really talking about is in order to fit all this, some of the residents down there, the businesses, are going to have to give up some of their frontage. Is that how that works?
Right. It's a widening. Like I said, up by the fire station, there seems to be a utility corridor across the street where we can widen into that the state owns. As you get down that hill, we're going to need to acquire a strip on each side, 4 or 5 feet at least, to fit these improvements in and blend it back into the surrounding area. So that's where we've got to be very careful because if there's parking in front of buildings, we want to try to maintain those businesses as best we can, without acquiring everything, all of their frontage. So it's a real balance between the improvements and blending it into the existing environment.
Yeah. Well, when you're ready, the sooner we get in front of the townspeople with some hearings explaining some of that, the better off we'll be.
Yeah, I think we're almost in a position to really have some plans they can digest.
So once the plans are laid out and you and we go through the hearings and everyone gets on the same page in terms of what's going to be done, how much is this going to cost and how do you fund that? Is that through the tip?
Yeah, it's in the tip right now. I think it's...
Explain what the TIP is, too.
Oh, yeah, good. It's a Transportation Improvement Program. It's basically a blueprint put together by statewide planning and a citizens group that determines how the state DOT spends the federal money that it gets. We have to take all the priorities from all of the communities, rank them, and then put them into years that we think that they can be done. So this project is in the TIP for starting in 2016 construction and then future to finish it. I believe the TIP has programmed $15 million right now. The design, like you mentioned before, was funded so far through an earmark that came from Washington that I think the town and the local congressional delegation was able to get for us.
Yeah, that came from Senator Reed's office,
Yeah,
which we are very thankful for.
Yeah, we've been able to do the majority of the design so far working with that money. But the construction will need that $15 million or so from the TIP. I think as we get closer to seeing, as the plans get more finalized, we'll have a better handle on exactly how much it is going to cost. But programmed right now, in a planning sense, we have that $15 million programmed. Anyway, I think as we go through these iterations now, getting closer to the end, we want to make sure that everybody agrees on what the improvements are going to be before we start acquiring property or going through the permitting process, because it is pretty complex.
Right, and there's a lot of interest. There's concerns as well.
Yeah.
Certainly, some of the folks that live in the Anthony House, and right now they don't have a good way of getting to the bus stop across the street without crossing East Main Road there, which, as we all know, can be life-threatening.
Right.
So this is great. Okay. So we've got time for a couple of more items. There's some pedestrian safety things being looked at up on Sprague Street.
Yes, that was also in the TIP in a category we call study and development, where DOT will study a certain problem, and then once it's decided what is going to be done, it gets programmed in construction like Town Center is. There, I think the town requested to consider sidewalks on Sprague Street because of the school and its connections to East and West Main Road. So it's a difficult little section to get sidewalks in. The existing road is kind of on a side of a hill, and the southern side, unfortunately, the side that has the school, high school, is the side with the steep hill. So if the sidewalks were to go on that side, if we widened, sidewalks are typically a minimum of 5 feet, all have to be flat per ADA regulations. You've got to blend that into that hill, would require a lot of walls. So I think the study is going to look at, can we do it on the other side, where it's a little flatter, although the utility poles are on that side. How will it all work, and can we do at least on both sides on the section between Sprague and East Main Road, because that would connect to the new project that we're improving sidewalks on East Main Road, hopefully later this year. So that study is going to look at that, price it out, see how much it would cost for different options, then we'll go back to the town and see what we want to go forward with there, and then we would initiate design of whatever that is. So that study is just getting underway now. That was something that was included in the latest iteration of the TIP a couple of years ago.
Right. Okay. One of the things that's near and dear to our hearts is the condition of the roadways, pavement management, all that. Like in the town, we've invested in software tools that Department of Public Works, Dave Keogh and his crew use quite meticulously to go out and rank all of the road conditions and prioritize some level of maintenance. And in fact, when John Klimm first took over as town administrator, he had some consultants come in and give the town council a really intensive tutorial on the various types and expense of road maintenance, and perhaps some insight from you as to how the state manages all that, because obviously a lot of the roads in town belong to you, and certainly after the kind of winter that we've had, potholes are an issue. There are roads that have gone to pretty poor condition over time anyway, and certainly over this past winter, that's only been worsened.
Yeah. Yeah, this winter was tough.
Yeah.
Talking to our colleagues in all of New England, it has been a season of exploding roadways, so to speak. But we use similar software to what you refer to that the town has, except we will look at all the state roads and some higher classification city and town roads all around the state. There's some new criteria in the latest highway bill, map 21.
When you say higher classification, what does that mean?
Well, all of the roads in the state fall into different classifications based on their use. Some are maintained by the state, some are maintained by the municipalities. Most of the higher classification roads are maintained by the state, but there are, particularly in the cities, higher classification roads that are maintained by the local community. So we review all of the roads on a certain classification and up, and then all of the state roads. So it's kind of a balance. Mostly in a community like Portsmouth, the higher level roads like East and West Main, Boyd's Lane, Bristol Ferry are all state roads. Usually there aren't too many low volume roads in the communities, but there are some. I think Middle Road here is a state road.
I believe half of it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite a puzzle to put together.
Yeah.
But we have to look at a lot of the same things and then balance them for 39 communities. We look at the condition, we look at the classification and the traffic volumes on certain roads, and we sort of rank them similarly to see where we should start. Naturally, the higher classification roads get attention first, but we've got to try to balance that by hitting some of the lower classification roads, or we'll never get to them. So it is kind of a balancing act. We do, actually we do two prongs of improvement. We look at poor and failed roads and we rank them as we discussed, but then we also look at the roads that are in the middle. This is sort of, it's a trend across the country. Other states are doing it, other municipalities. It's pavement preservation. Right. You're trying to catch the roads before they hit the curve and fall off the end like a lot did this year. Bristol Ferry is a good example. That road was in our pavement preservation program. It's not in horrible shape, as some others might be, but while we're focusing on getting the bad roads, we're also trying to catch the roads that are in the middle and extend their service life. We do that by putting down a thin, like an inch overlay, different types of asphalt. We'll also crack seal those roads. So Bristol Ferry is one where we were going to put down a thin overlay to catch it before it gets to that poor and gets really lumped in with the bad roads. So we've been attacking the state roads on those two levels, and by doing those in the middle, you keep roads from getting to poor, so that you can focus on those and not, kind of extending the service life, because you're spending more on the ones that are bad to bring them back to good condition. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach that many states are using to try to keep things in focus.
And I would imagine that when you're dealing with a road where you have to take those big asphalt grinders over them and all that, can you give us some idea of what happens to the expense when you go from a middle range kind of thing to a point where the road is failing and you have to take the top layer off?
Exactly. If we can catch a road where we just mill off an inch or two and then put down the same amount, put it back, you can kind of blend everything in and you're back to where you were. It's the roads that have completely failed, where you've got to get down into the base and basically reconstruct the whole road base. Right. Those are the ones that are very expensive for us, particularly here in the Northeast, because when you take that pavement off, you're exposing utilities that are in the road too, which are even older than the road pavement, and then they've got to be fixed. So that really adds a lot of expense to the project. If you can catch and stay on the surface, you really reduce your impact. It's much lower cost, and you're into so many other things when you're taking all the pavement off because it's totally gone. And we're trying to preserve the middle roads and attack those poor ones. But, you know, it really comes down to a funding issue. To keep up with it, you really need a certain amount of resources to be devoted so that roads don't keep falling into the poor category. But that's been a challenge both nationally and for the state to keep up with those funding challenges.
Right, right. So let's take Bristol Ferry, for instance. You're going to go out and put a new veneer or a new top on it.
Yep.
In terms of preservation, how long will that last?
That should last at least 10 to 12 years with what we're going to do, on top of however long it's already gone. We are going to mill off an inch or so there and then put back. The sidewalks were done recently in Americans with Disability Act project, so you'll essentially have a brand new road, which should last 10 to 12 years before it needs attention again.
Yeah.
And if we can hit it again, then you know, we just want to keep it from falling into the classification where we've really got to go back and do a full-scale rebuild.
Yeah. How about the crack filling stuff, where you just do that? How much?
Yeah, that's usually done about 5 or 6 years after we've done a paving project.
Okay.
And then that can hold it together before we come back with the thin overlay. It usually goes crack seal, thin overlay, and then, you know, other improvements, but usually at about 5-year intervals.
So what are some of the considerations in the priority scheme? Because that's one of the most frequent phone calls, certainly the town hall gets, is, hey, my road's a mess. When are you guys coming by, you know?
It's mostly traffic volume and the service that it gives. You know, we would have to give more priority to an east or west main road than to some lower classification roads. We try to hit some of those other ones too, but again, you've kind of got to make your plan based on how much money you've got. And that's why transportation agencies always want good long-range funding program so they can plan to implement, because the program takes a number of years to keep up with it. If you're getting it 1 year at a time, it really is difficult to have a comprehensive plan.
Right. So thanks for the perspective on how the state lays out the priorities and all that. From the town side, if I could put in a plug, we're working hard to hold up our end. We've got a capital improvement plan that's been put into place now for a couple of years. We're putting money aside for road maintenance, resurfacing, and all that. As I said, Dave Cute on Public Works has software that helps them assess and prioritize which roads. Yep. So from the municipal side, we're trying to do our part too. So I think between the state and the town, I think we're making inroads, if you will, in improving our transportation infrastructure.
Yeah. We're all struggling with the same challenges.
Oh yeah, it's all about the money. I would like to thank you very much for coming down. It's been very informative. I want to thank you for Monday night, the hearing that you presented at. I think went a long way towards relieving any public concerns about Bristol Ferry Road. We look forward to hearing more on the trial related to that, and certainly more on the town center as you finalize your plans and get ready to present. That would, everybody's interested in hearing about that.
Great.
So Bob, thank you for coming down. It's been very informative. Hope we can do it again.
All right, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.